Hi, welcome to Five Writers, 5 Minutes, where five authors talk about their writing craft. My name is Annie Louise.
I'm Leanne Tanner.
I'm Sarah Armstrong.
I'm Deborah Abella.
And today we are joined by our special guest, Mick Elliott, who is the author and illustrator of picture books, including Dads and Dogs and Mums and Mogs, and the middle grade series Squidge Dibbly and The Turners. Welcome, Mick.
And I am not Tristan Banks.
Oh,
No.
But I'm happy to be here.
Damn.
Well, we're excited to have you here because we want to talk today about accepting criticism. I don't know about you guys, but this is one of my biggest human weaknesses, as in life weaknesses. I'm just so bad at accepting criticism. I remember being in year 2 and a teacher telling me off about something. I think it was so minor. I felt so terrible. I remember it so clearly. So I'm very averse to criticism. But as a writer, it is part of the course. You're going to get some feedback. I personally don't read Goodreads reviews and other reviews that, might not be amazing. That's just something I need to do to protect myself. But when it comes down to someone like an editor who is paid to give you feedback, I am listening closely. And in fact, I think it's wonderful. And I always see it as a privilege. Someone's taken time to read my work and think about how they can give me something to make my story better. And I always see them as professionals and, they're so skilled at what they do. And also editors in our industry happen to be really lovely. So they're quite good at delivering feedback and giving it in a very nice way. However, there's sometimes where I will have written a story and I feel really proud of it, and I'll get the criticism or I'll get the feedback and it's really not that good. And the person really doesn't like my story in the way I do. And that is tough. So what I need to do is just take a moment, take a breath, hear them, feel a bit sad for a minute and go away and maybe do something else, fill the bucket in some other way. And what I find quite often is I'll have that person's kind of thing rolling around the back of my head, trying not to take it personally, just see it as, it's about the work, not about me. And I'll often think, oh, hang on a second. There's some truth in this. I actually think this is really helpful, and it will just help me open up the story and see things in a whole new way and make my story better, which is really the goal. Leanne, how about you? What's your process when accepting criticism?
Oh, Zanny, you're not alone in this. I think accepting criticism is the hardest thing. And it's hard because, first of all, we pour our heart and soul into these stories. So they're kind of our babies, and to have them criticized is really hard. But also because whenever I give my work to an editor or something, what I want them to say is, Leanne, it's done, it's perfect, it's absolutely wonderful, you don't have to do any more work on it. Whereas what they do is come back to me and say, Leanne, you need to do some more work. So it's that thing of, you want this story to be finished because you've been working on it for a while, and then you discover that you need to keep working on it. So it's hard, but it is also incredibly necessary because it is so hard to be objective about our own work. So we need that feedback. We need to hear from other people if we want to improve a story, a book, or our understanding of the writing craft. And what I always remind myself is that I do not have to take this feedback on board if I don't want to. Even my editor says, these are just suggestions. You don't have to do them. But what I know is that she has the best interests of the book at heart. She wants the book to be as good as it possibly can. And if I am being honest with myself, and I think that this is a time when we as writers have to be intensely honest with ourselves. If I give it a couple of days and, like you, just kind of let it mull over in my mind, then I do come to the point where I usually say that, yeah, she's right. Having said that, I have had an occasion where feedback, and this is from a different publisher, went so far against the heart of a book, and this was a picture book, that I said, no, I won't do it. And I lost a contract because of it. It just felt as if they didn't get the book. And I didn't want to change the book to be what they wanted it to be. So, yeah. Look, good criticism is worth its weight in gold, but we do have to be intensely honest with ourselves around this.
And listen to our
instincts.
Sarah? By the sound.
Listen to our instincts. Yeah, very much so. Sarah, what about you?
I think I have found it much easier over time to receive criticism or critique. I can remember in my early days as a writer, taking it very personally, and it's not personal. It's about the work. You know, the work is separate to me, and I think it's really important to separate ourselves from our work. So I think that's something that's just got much, much easier over time. And it is just part of being a writer, isn't it? You know, whether you get criticism from your critique group, who of course are very, very kind and deliver it in a lovely way, or your publishers who equally are very kind. Or for young writers, you know, perhaps teachers or, you know, other people who might read it. So we're always getting critique. And I think the thing is, it's so important because the person who you're getting the critique from is really one of your early readers. So it's so important to get that sense of how the story lands for your reader, because it exists in our head. And we often assume we've put all sorts of things in the story that we haven't yet. So I actually love getting critique. I mean, there's a small part of me like you, Leanne, that hopes that someone will just say, oh, this is perfect. It's just perfect. You don't need to change a single thing, not a single word. But, you know, that just never happens. So I think it can be helpful to think about who you ask critique from as well. I remember early on asking for my dad to read something and give me some critique, and it just, he didn't know how, he wasn't a writer. He didn't know how to do it, even though he was a lovely dad and very well intentioned. So I think it's like being really clear. Just don't just sort of give it to your neighbor or whoever. But if you do, tell them what you want.
Yeah.
This is what I want. I want you to tell me what's working, what you love. Where did your attention wander? Where did you lose interest? Was anything confusing? What would you like more of? All that stuff is super helpful, because if someone's not experienced at giving critique, they just think they've got to find everything wrong with it rather than telling you where they were grabbed or where they were not grabbed. So that would be my suggestion. If you're going to get some critique from someone who's not a professional critiquer, like a publisher or a teacher, for instance, then tell them what you want, and that they'll appreciate that so much because they've got some guidelines then.
Yeah, that's a great idea. How about you, Deb?
I was an odd child in that, there were many ways I was an odd child, but I loved reading my stories out to the class. And I would literally, I wasn't almost listening to the story. I was like monitoring the class, and I'd go, oh, I thought that was really funny, and no one laughed, or just that one kid laughed, and I think it's funnier than that. I would want them to say, I'd look for their frowns when I thought, okay, this part's confusing. I'm not getting to the point quickly. I remember in year 5 thinking, I need feedback because I don't know everything about everything, and I still don't. And so I think what is lovely about criticism is there are fresh eyes looking at this thing you have created, right? And when you create something from scratch, it takes a long time for you to get to know it perfectly, right? And the good thing about this lovely critique group is we show our work to this critique group very often first. Then I also show it to kids first before my publisher even gets to see it. So many eyes have been on my work. So hopefully they do laugh at the right place, and they do, you know, not frown so much. But I think because I've been working with the same publisher for 20 years, different editors, but not actually so many different editors, they are smart and they can see it clearly, and they're not me who's agonized over it for 6 months at my desk, you know, and there's so much. I find writing is so huge, right? And it's so hard. You are trying to draw so many threads together. You're trying to be clever with your words. You're trying to get the perfect line of dialogue. There is no way your first draft is going to be perfect. And that's a good thing. So what I look for, I'm like all of you, I enjoy criticism. I look forward to it. And sometimes even if I don't like it, or I think, oh, well, that's not what I meant at all, I sit with it. I force myself to sit with it, because even if I don't accept all of it, there will often be a little kernel of truth that I didn't quite see in the mess of that first draft. Mick Elliott, what do you do when you criticize? I imagine no one criticizes you because you're amazing.
No, there's always criticism there. And I think, I mean, at the heart of it, and I think what you've all talked about is just our reaction, because writing, as we know, it's an incredibly vulnerable process. Any creative pursuit is a vulnerable process. So of course, getting feedback from the world and negative feedback from the world puts you in a real fight or flight state. It makes you feel very vulnerable. So I don't think there is anyone out there who likes criticism. They're probably a psychopath if they do. And let's face it, we don't have any psychopaths in the children's literature industry. So as far as we know. So I think,
as far as we know.
Our reaction to criticism is actually more, I find, and certainly my reaction is more about the work that will be involved to execute the changes that are required. I think that's more what it is. It's like, oh, you've told me I've got to rewrite this or change that. Oh, but now that means I'm going to have to spend the next 4 months doing that thing that I've already spent 2 years. That's actually what's at the core of it. It's actually more the practicality of the effort of having to climb back up the mountain you thought you were already on the top of. So, but I've been very, very lucky over the years to work with fantastic editors, fantastic publishers, and I think probably like Deb, coming from a background in TV where everything you did was usually brutally criticized before it could go on air, probably had a reasonably thick skin, and so understand that the person professionally giving you criticism is ultimately working towards trying to make the thing that you're working on something really great. Obviously, yes, very, very different, as Zanny said, to going on to Goodreads and seeing what Pet Lover 457 thinks of your work,
Yes, you have to take your criticism wisely, don't you? Well, I love listening to all of your views on this. I love Stephen King's statement on this too, which is write your first draft with the door closed, write your second draft with the door open, which means we have to think about who our reader is. So that's when feedback and criticism, in inverted commas, comes into play. Thank you so much for listening to us today. You'll find us on YouTube and any podcast platform you would like to listen to. Hope you have a wonderful day, and hopefully this helps your approach to taking criticism too. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.